AITA for exposing my brother after he ruined my life with a fake video of me cheating? I am 28 years old. I own a couple of gyms in Portland. I am married to an incredible woman. I have 4-year-old twins and another baby on the way. If you had asked me 6 years ago if I ever thought my life would end up like this, I would have told you that you were completely crazy. Because 6 years ago, my life literally fell apart in a matter of days because of my older brother. When I say fell apart, I am not exaggerating even a little bit. I am talking about losing my corporate job, my apartment, my girlfriend, my family, and my friends. Basically, I lost everything I had built in my 20s, all for a fabricated video that my brother paid $1,000 to create. Yes, you read that right. $1,000 to ruin my life completely. I guess I should start at the beginning with my brother, Derek. Derek is 2 years older than me, and since we were kids, he was always the golden child. You know the type, the one who did everything right, the one who got the best grades, the one who played varsity soccer and was team captain, and the one who went to an Ivy League university on a full scholarship. I wasn't a bad student or anything. I got good grades and made the dean's list a few times, but it was never enough compared to Derek. My parents basically adored him, and I was like the spare child. You know what I mean? It is not that they treated me badly, exactly, but the difference was obvious to anyone who knew us. Derek could do whatever he wanted and always had their support, while I had to try twice as hard to get half the attention. When we grew up, things didn't improve much. Derek became a successful financial consultant. He made 6 figures, bought a luxury condo, and my parents wouldn't stop talking about how proud they were of him. I worked in marketing for a mid-sized company. It wasn't anything extraordinary, but I liked my job and earned enough to live comfortably. By that point, I had already accepted that I was never going to be the favorite, and I was okay with that. Or at least, that is what I thought. In 2018, I met Haley at a company retreat. It was one of those mandatory corporate events that are usually incredibly boring, but this time it turned out to be the best day of my life up to that moment. Haley worked in the finance department. I had seen her around the office, but we had never really talked. She was standing next to the drinks table, struggling to open a stubborn bottle of wine. I offered to help her, and we ended up talking for about 3 hours straight. She was smart, funny, beautiful, and for some reason seemed really interested in me, which honestly surprised me a bit because she was totally out of my league. We started dating officially about a month after that, and things were going incredibly well. Haley was everything I wanted in a partner. She was ambitious, but also super affectionate. She loved making spontaneous plans, like going to try a new restaurant midweek or driving 2 hours to the coast to see the sunrise. We moved in together after 1.5 years of dating. We signed a lease on a small but nice apartment near downtown, and I honestly thought this was the woman I was going to marry. Eventually, I started saving for a ring. In fact, I had about $3,000 saved and planned to propose to her on our 2-year anniversary. The problem started when Derek re-entered my life. He had been living in another city for work, but returned and suddenly wanted to reconnect. He wanted us to go out for beers, watch football games together, and do typical brother things. At first, I thought it was nice, as if we were finally going to have a decent adult relationship. I introduced him to Haley, obviously, and she was super kind to him, as she always was with everyone. We started making plans as a trio from time to time, like dinners or going out to a sports bar on Fridays. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. Derek started showing up at our apartment complex without warning, always with some excuse, like he was in the neighborhood and wanted to say hi. He started sending messages directly to Haley to ask random things. She would mention it to me casually, but I didn't think much of it because, well, he was my brother. Once, I found him looking at her in a weird way when she was cooking, but when I asked if everything was okay, he said yes and changed the subject. There were signs. Definitely, there were signs, but I was so happy with my life that I didn't want to see what was right in front of me. In October 2019, my company sent me to a conference in Seattle. It was for 3 days, nothing special. Haley couldn't come because she had an important presentation at work that same week. I told Derek I was going to be away, and he said something like, that's great. Hope it goes well. Totally normal. I left Wednesday morning. The conference was pretty boring, actually. It was nothing but presentations on digital marketing strategies I already knew. I texted Haley every day. We FaceTimed at night, and everything seemed completely normal. I returned Friday afternoon, around 5 p.m. When I opened the apartment door, Haley was sitting on the sofa with her laptop. From the way she looked at me, I knew immediately that something was very wrong. She asked me where I had really been. Confused, I told her I was in Seattle, obviously, at the conference I had been talking to her about all week. She turned the laptop toward me. There was a video, about 2 minutes long, and it was me. I mean, it looked exactly like me, in a hotel room with a woman who definitely wasn't Haley, and we were involved in a serious act of infidelity. I froze completely because I literally had no idea what I was seeing. My brain couldn't process what my eyes were seeing because I knew that had never happened. I told her that wasn't me, that it was impossible, and that I had been in Seattle at the conference the whole time. She started crying and screaming at me, asking how I could lie to her like that when the evidence was right there. I tried to explain that it must be some kind of edited video, that someone had done that to make me look bad. She asked me who would want to do that and why. Honestly, I didn't have an answer in that moment because I couldn't think clearly. I was in a state of total panic. My hands were shaking, and I felt as if the apartment was spinning. I begged her to believe me. I showed her all my hotel receipts from Seattle, my plane tickets, and the geotag photos I had taken at the conference with the date and location. I even called my boss so he could confirm that I had been there all week. Nothing worked. She was convinced the video was real. She said it looked exactly like me, that my face was perfectly clear, that my voice sounded the same, and that I even had the same mole on my left shoulder. I didn't know what else to do. I was desperate. I told her over and over that I loved her, that I would never do something like that to her, and that we had to figure out who had made that video and why. She told me to leave because she needed space to think. I stayed on my friend Owen's couch that night. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that fake video in my head. The next day, I went back to the apartment, and Haley had already packed all my things in bags. She told me she had made her decision and that our relationship was over. She said she couldn't be with someone who lied to her that way. I tried to talk to her one more time, but she wouldn't even look me in the eye. She just kept repeating that she had seen the video, that it was clear evidence, asking how I expected her to believe me when there was visual proof of my infidelity. But it didn't end there. I mean, I wish it had ended there. Haley apparently showed the video to some people from our office, and in a matter of days, practically the whole company had seen it. My boss called me to his office the following Monday and told me that, due to the situation and the hostile work environment that had been created, they thought it was better if I looked for opportunities elsewhere. Basically, Human Resources was processing my termination. I tried to explain that the video was fake, that I could prove I had been in Seattle, but he told me that regardless of the veracity of the video, the damage to my professional reputation was already done and that it was better for everyone if I left. I lost my job on a Tuesday. On Thursday, the landlord of the building where I lived with Haley called to tell me that Haley had requested to remove me from the lease and that I needed to pick up the rest of my things before the weekend. My friends started distancing themselves. Some stopped talking to me completely. Others sent me messages asking how I could do that to Haley, telling me they were disappointed in me. I tried to explain to everyone that the video was fake, but nobody believed me. Absolutely nobody. I called my parents, thinking that at least they would believe me. They are my parents. They are supposed to be on my side. I explained the whole situation to them. I told them someone had created a fake video of me to ruin my relationship and my life. I begged them to believe me. My mom was crying on the other end of the phone, and my dad told me he was very disappointed, asking how I could hurt a girl as good as Haley like that. I told them to call Derek, that he knew me, that he knew I would never do something like that. My dad told me they had already spoken with Derek, that he had also seen the video, and that he was as surprised as they were by my behavior. That was when something clicked in my head. Derek had seen the video. Derek was super involved with Haley lately. Derek had always been the favorite, and suddenly everything made sense in the worst possible way. I asked my dad who had shown the video to Derek, and there was a long silence on the other end. My mom finally said that Haley had sent the video to Derek because he had been giving her emotional support during this difficult situation. I got so angry in that moment that I literally yelled over the phone. I told them Derek had something to do with this, that he had created the video to keep Haley, and that this was all his plan. My dad told me I was being ridiculous and paranoid, that Derek was just being a good brother by supporting Haley during her difficult time, and that I needed to accept responsibility for my actions instead of blaming others. I hung up the phone and sat there on the floor of Owen's apartment. I think that was the moment I really understood that I had lost everything. I didn't have a girlfriend, I didn't have a job, I didn't have an apartment, and I didn't have my family's support. My friends had turned their backs on me, and to top it off, everyone thought I was a liar and a cheater. The worst part of all is that I knew the truth. I knew that video was fake, but I had no way to prove it. In 2019, deepfake technology was already pretty advanced, but most people didn't even know it existed. I spent about 2 weeks researching deepfake videos, reading articles, watching tutorials, and trying to understand how the technology worked and how I could prove my video was fake. I discovered that there were companies and freelancers offering deepfake creation services. Some charged thousands of dollars for high-quality videos. I tried to show this information to Haley. I sent her about 10 articles on deepfakes. I begged her to reconsider, to investigate the possibility that the video was fake. She never answered any of my messages. Owen was literally the only person who believed me from the beginning. He had known me since college. We had been roommates, and he told me he knew I would never do something like that. He worked at a gym in Portland and told me there was a position available there. He said that if I wanted to start over in a new city, he would help me. I didn't have many options, to be honest. I was running out of savings quickly. I couldn't get another job in marketing because my reputation was destroyed, and staying in that city meant continuing to see the judgmental looks of people who used to be my friends. I moved to Portland in December 2019, just before Christmas. My parents didn't even say goodbye to me. I sent them a message saying I was moving, and my mom just replied with something like, "Take care." I started working at the gym with Owen, doing a bit of everything: cleaning, working the front desk, and helping with classes. It wasn't what I had planned for my life, definitely not, but at least it was a start. The gym owner was a really cool older guy named Graham. He never asked me much about my past. He just told me that if I worked hard and was honest with him, I would have a place there as long as I needed. The first few months in Portland were probably the hardest of my life. I would wake up every morning and for a second forget everything that had happened, and then reality would hit me again, and I felt physically sick. I thought about Haley constantly. I wondered if Derek had already approached her, if she had realized something, or if she was ever going to know the truth. I thought about confronting Derek, like literally going to his house and forcing him to confess. But Owen convinced me that would probably just make things worse and prove nothing. About 6 months passed, and I started feeling a little better. Not good, exactly, but the constant pain turned into a dull ache I could ignore most of the time. I started focusing more on work, on improving my physical fitness, and on building a new life, even if it wasn't the life I wanted. Graham started giving me more responsibilities, put me in charge of some classes, and taught me about the fitness business. One day, he told me he was thinking about selling the gym and retiring, and he asked if I would be interested in buying it with Owen as partners. It took us another year of saving and a small business loan, but in 2021, Owen and I became owners of the gym. It was around that time that I met Elena. She had just moved to Portland for a job as a kindergarten teacher and came to the gym looking for yoga classes. She was different from Haley in many ways, calmer and more reserved at first, but there was something about her that made me feel safe. You know what I mean? I didn't tell her about my past immediately. Honestly, I was afraid that if I told her about the video and everything that had happened, she would think I was some kind of troubled person and would walk away. But after about 3 months of dating, I felt I had to tell her the truth. One night after dinner, I told her everything, absolutely everything, about Haley, about the video, about Derek, and about how I lost everything in a matter of days. I expected her to tell me she needed time to think or that maybe this was too much drama for her. But instead, she took my hand and told me she believed me. She said she could see in my eyes that I was telling the truth. She told me we all have a past, and what mattered was who I was now, not a fake video from years ago. We got married in 2022. It was a small wedding, basically Owen, some friends from the gym, and Elena's family. My parents didn't even know I had gotten married. I hadn't spoken to them since I moved to Portland. Elena and I had twins in 2023, Noah and Lily. Honestly, when they were born and I held them in my arms for the first time, I felt that I had finally found my place in the world. We opened a second gym location in 2024. Things were going really well. And although I still thought about what had happened from time to time, it no longer consumed my thoughts constantly. Then, about 2 months ago, I received a message from a guy named Carter who had been a friend of mine before all the drama. The message said, "Hey, I know you probably don't want to know anything about me, but you need to see this." He attached a video. When I opened it, it was Derek, clearly intoxicated at what looked like a party or networking mixer, talking to a group of people. At first, I didn't understand what was happening, but then I heard what he was saying, and my heart literally stopped. Derek was bragging, literally bragging, about how he had paid $1,000 to some freelancer on the internet to create a perfect deepfake of me cheating on my girlfriend. He was laughing, saying it was the best investment he had ever made because I ended up breaking up with Haley just as he had planned. He said he had used photos of me from social media and some videos he had from when we lived together, that the process took about 3 weeks, but it was totally worth it. Someone in the video asked him if he didn't feel bad, and he said something like, "Nah, my brother always had it too easy with women. It was time he lost something for once." Carter had recorded this on his phone and sent it to me, saying he couldn't believe what he had heard, that he felt horrible for not believing me before, and that he had shared the video with some people, so it was probably going to go viral. And sure enough, in a matter of hours, that video was everywhere. Carter had uploaded it to TikTok with a complete explanation of what Derek had done, and people were outraged. I started receiving messages from old friends apologizing, saying they didn't know and that they regretted not believing me. My parents called me, both crying, saying they were so sorry, that they had been terrible parents, and that Derek had confessed everything when they confronted him. My dad kept repeating, "I can't believe my own son did something like that." I wanted to scream at him that I was also his son and that he should have believed me from the beginning, but I just told him I needed time to process everything. My mom asked me about the twins, if she could meet them, and I told her I would think about it. But honestly, I didn't know if I wanted them to know people who had abandoned me so easily. Haley also contacted me. She sent me a long email explaining that she and Derek had started dating about 2 months after I left, that they had gotten married last year and had a son together. She said that when she saw Derek's confession, she felt completely devastated. She realized her entire relationship had been built on a horrible lie. She told me she was filing for divorce, that he had already lost his job because the video had gone so viral it reached his company's leadership, and that she completely understood if I never wanted to talk to her, but that she needed to apologize. I didn't reply to Haley. Elena and I talked for a long time about the whole situation, about whether I should try to reconnect with my parents, and about what to do with all the attention I was receiving. In the end, I decided that the best thing for me and my family was to stay the course I had already taken. My parents call me every week now, and sometimes I answer and we talk briefly, but there are no plans to visit each other or anything like that. I sent them photos of the twins because, well, they are their grandkids after all. But the relationship is never going to be what it could have been if they had supported me when I really needed them. Derek lost his job and his wife. Basically, his entire life fell apart in the same way mine fell apart years ago. Part of me feels satisfied about that. I'm not going to lie. But another part just feels a kind of emptiness. I'm not going to pretend that I forgave him or anything like that because I didn't, and probably never will. What he did was unforgivable. But I'm also not going to waste more energy hating him. You know, I already wasted enough time of my life because of his actions. Haley told me that her son, my nephew, technically, although I've never met him, is going to have to grow up knowing what his father did. I ended up opening a trust fund for the boy. I put about $20,000 in there for his college fund or whatever he needs when he grows up. I didn't do it for Derek or for Haley. I did it because the boy isn't to blame for any of this and doesn't deserve to suffer for his father's actions. But I made it very clear that this doesn't mean I want to have any kind of relationship with them. The money is simply to make sure the child has opportunities, despite everything. Elena is pregnant again. We are having a girl in March. Our gyms are doing super well. We are thinking about opening a third one next year. Noah and Lily start preschool in a few months and are super excited. My life now is completely different from the life I had 6 years ago. Honestly, although I would have liked for things to be different, and although I would have liked not to have to go through all that pain, I wouldn't change where I ended up. Because if none of that had happened, I wouldn't be married to Elena, I wouldn't have my kids, and I wouldn't have this life I built from scratch in Portland. Last week, Owen and I were closing the gym, and he said to me, "You know what, man? I know it was horrible what happened, but look at everything you have now." And he is right. I have more than I ever thought I would have after my life exploded. I have a wife who believes me and supports me unconditionally. I have beautiful children. I have a successful business. I have real friends who were there when things got tough. The family I chose ended up being much better than the family I was born with. I guess that is the biggest lesson I learned from all this. Blood doesn't always mean loyalty, and sometimes the true family is the one you build yourself. Comment. Sometimes life hits us with unfair situations we can't control or predict. It's easy to let bitterness consume us when people we trust betray us so deeply. But real power lies in how we choose to rebuild after everything falls apart. We often learn that loyalty is about action and support, not just sharing the same bloodline. Walking away from toxic environments isn't weakness, it's a necessary step for survival. You deserve to be surrounded by people who believe in your character without demanding endless proof. Even when you have every right to be angry, choosing to break the cycle of hate brings the greatest peace. Trust that your integrity will eventually lead you to the life and the family you were always meant to have. Focus on building your happiness today, because that's the best response to anyone who ever doubted you. I hope this story reminds you that rock bottom can become a solid foundation for a beautiful new beginning. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.